Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and this review is going to be of the SMSL DO300EX, a $469 US DAC headphone amplifier and preamp all in one unit. This unit was sent to me by Aoshida Audio. They have asked nothing in return other than a fair and honest evaluation, which is what you're about to get, and they have made no attempt to influence my opinion on this piece in any way, so all thoughts you are about to hear are mine and mine alone. The link that you see down below in the description where you can buy this unit will be an affiliate link for Aoshida and any other place that I can find that might sell it. There could also be some affiliate links there. So if you like what I say about this product and you are interested in it, please consider using one of those affiliate links. All affiliate link money that I have earned goes right back into the channel to either buy more gear to review or pay for shipping, or buy support gear like lights, cameras, microphones, you know, those kinds of things it takes to keep a YouTube channel running. So with that, we will do shameless self-promotion, and then we'll come back on the other side and dive into the DO300EX.
Hi, I'm Wave Theory's human companion, and he wants you to know that your support of this YouTube channel helps keep the reviews coming. If you enjoy Wave Theory's honest, thorough style, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description below to sign up for the Patreon or send him a tip through PayPal. All right, enjoy the musings.
So this is another all-in-one unit, and it comes in again right at about $470 US. I recently reviewed the Matrix Audio Mini i4 and both the Pro and non-Pro versions, which were all-in-one units. And in that review, I shared some thoughts on how we should frame and think about, or at least how I should frame and think about reviewing all-in-one units. And I will leave the details of those thoughts in that review, but I will summarize like the take-home message of that part here because it relates to this unit itself being an all-in-one unit. And that is that if I can assemble a separate stack that does all of the things that an all-in-one unit can do and sounds just as good or better than that all-in-one unit does, then the all-in-one unit is too expensive and it needs to be lowered in price. So that's kind of the lens that I'm going to be coming through here in this review too, because we have another all-in-one before us to consider. So one of the questions that I will be trying to address throughout this review is, does this thing earn its price tag? Like, can I put together a DAC, headphone amp, and preamp combo somehow for about this price that gives me this level of sonic performance or better? Okay, if so, then this thing is too expensive. If not, then it's a good bargain, right? And that belongs where it is. So with that in mind, let's consider this piece as it is, and then we'll come back and answer those questions as we go. So the DO300EX, again, $470 US. The decoding in it is handled by AKM this time. We have one of those new two-chip AKM solutions that combined the 4191 and the 4499EX chips in there. We have an XMOS XU316 USB controller in here. The DAC section can decode up to 32-bit 768 kilohertz sampling rate PCM files and up to DSD 1024. I think that's the correct DSD multiplier anyway. Okay, DSD 1024 from the USB input. It can also do MQA decoding from the USB input if that is relevant to you. The SPDIF inputs are limited to 24-bit 192 kilohertz PCM decoding, or a digital or DSD over PCM at that same rate, if that is also of interest to you there. There is a Bluetooth receiver on this thing. It can do Bluetooth 5.1 under the LDAC codec and so forth. The headphone amplifier is rated at 2-watt output at 16 ohm impedance and a 1-watt output at 32 ohm impedance. Okay. So there we go, and we'll talk a little bit more about the amplifier and all of that in just a moment when we do a unit tour. Okay, so again, it's a DAC it's a headphone amplifier, and it's a preamp because the line outs on the DAC can be set to a variable mode, so you can use this as a preamp if you want. Let's go ahead and do a quick unit tour here while we're at it. It comes in two colors. I was sent the silver faceplate version, but you can also get black. Okay, we have a color display window here that when it's plugged in and lit up, it will tell you sampling rate, volume level, and those which input you have selected, and just general basic information like that. Multi-function wheel right here that is both a button and a wheel. This will normally control volume, but you can also access the menu by pushing it in. Then you navigate the up and down and the options, which show up over here. Okay, and then tapping it again for selecting options here. Then we see the headphone outputs from the headphone amplifier. We have a 6.35 millimeter / quarter-inch single-ended output, and then we have a 4.4 millimeter Pentacon balanced output. Unfortunately, that does not mean that the headphone amplifier in here is balanced. Both of these outputs are rated for the same amount of output power, which tells me that the headphone amp in here is a single-ended unit and that the 4.4 millimeter Pentacon output is there more for convenience than to indicate that this is a balanced amplifier. The DAC, however, is balanced, and we'll get to that in just a moment. If you are curious, the amplifier stage in here is op-amp based. It uses a Texas Instruments op-amp chip, and I apologize, I do not remember the number of that chip, but I will link to Aoshida's website where you can look up that information with ease if you wish. Okay, the rest of the build of the unit, like this silver up here is, I think that is a brushed aluminum. I mean, it feels kind of cold to the touch, okay, like aluminum does anyway. And so it's, it's got some nice durability to it there. We have like a thin aluminum case here. The back panel, actually, I think that is plastic now that I think about it. Anyway, it's either a very thin aluminum or plastic anyway, okay. It's not a super heavy unit. The build quality doesn't exude quality or anything, but it's also fine. Like it's adequate, no real problems there. Let's take a look at the back of the unit. Power input here with a master rocker power switch. We have the stem for the Bluetooth antenna here. This is the USB input, and it uses USB-C connector right there. So you may have to get a new, it comes with a USB cable, but if you like aftermarket USB cables and you already have one, it'll need to be USB-C. We have an I2S input here, then we have two flavors of SPDIF input. We have a coaxial RCA connector there, and then we have a Toast-Link fiber optic. And then here are the analog outputs. We have the set of balanced XLR 3-pin outputs, and then we have single-ended RCA pair out here. In the way that SMSL likes to do, they like to put the RCA inputs between the XLR outputs. I don't know why they do that. They do. It's just very common for their design to do that. So here we see that we do have a balanced DAC output / preamp here, but again, the headphone amplifier in here, best I can tell, is single-ended. Okay, so those are really the features and the build and the usability. The only other thing is that it comes with SML's pretty standard at this point, RC8C remote control. This is handy, makes navigating the menus a lot easier, makes switching from the menu back to volume control and things like that a lot faster. So I think you're going to want to hang on to this and keep it handy to use this unit if you choose to buy it and use it with any kind of frequency. All right, so let's go ahead and turn our attention to sound, and on the way to doing that, we will talk about test gear. So the bulk of the time that I used this unit, I used it as a full-fledged DAC amp, right, as an all-in-one unit where I used the headphone outputs on the front. I took it to the office at my real job, used it on my desk there. I connected the USB input here to my Microsoft Surface Pro 4, and then usually used Ottervana Okay, and use that to play local, both lossless and high-res FLAC files and some local DSD files. Occasionally do some Qobuz streaming there. I used two different headphones there at the office. Both of them were closed backs. One of them is the Austrian Audio HiX60, which I have a review for. I will put that link down in the description, as well as the Focal Radiance. Okay, I will put that link down in the description as well. I have a couple of videos out about that one. All right, both of those are low impedance dynamic driver headphones. They are also closed back, and I mean, and in that setting, closed back definitely works best, so that's what I use there. And then I did bring the unit home to evaluate the DAC section, and plugged its DAC outputs into some fairly high-end amplifiers here. My Vioelectric HPA V281 for a little bit, the HiFiMan Prelude amplifier, which is under review for a while, and then also a friend just sent me the Vioelectric HPA V550, so that review will be coming up very soon. I have a fairly compressed time window on that one, so that will be coming soon to do some comparisons with. And then those high-end amplifiers were mostly driving the Susvara and the Focal Utopia, the original Focal Utopia, just because I was really wanting to compare this to other DACs in the price range, and those are my two most resolving headphones to like help me tease out differences in the DAC here. I also did briefly try plugging in like easier to drive headphones on this thing, like the new HiFiMan Aria Organic, and I think the Ananda Nano right there got a little bit of time in there as well, just to try like a different kind of amplifier or a different kind of headphone on the amp with you know, a plain R load instead of a dynamic. Also tried the Sennheiser HD6XX on there for a high impedance load on this thing to see how the headphone amplifier would do. While here at home, I would have used the coaxial input routed through my Singer SU6, which was fed by my Sonor Ultra Rendu streamer, then used Roon to deliver lossless FLAC or high-res FLAC or local DSD files, either all locally or streaming from Qobuz. Okay. The sound, and then we'll do some comparisons, and then we'll come back and talk about where this thing falls in the market and whether it is in fact a fair value at $470 US. So just as an all-in-one unit, it's decent. Okay, I was not blown away by its overall performance, nor was I extremely disappointed either. In the office setting, using those two easy-to-drive, closed-back dynamic driver headphones, it did the job. It played music while I was doing work and mostly got out of the way. It was fairly easy to use. Another thing that I liked to do there at work every now and then is like listen to a podcast on my lunch break or something, and it connected to my phone, my Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus phone, which is doing the filming right now via LDAC, and you know, played podcasts and all that. Connected just fine, was nice and stable connection there too. But that's kind of the important thing, that I mean, in that setting, I used it for background listening and it sounded good. Like there were times that I had it on there and it's working away on something. I think, oh yeah, the cymbals on that sound pretty good. And then I'd have to go back to work and that sort of thing. When I got it home for critical listening and really like dove in on the amplifier, I realized that the amplifier is okay. It's not great, and I think that the headphone amp in this is probably the biggest weakness of the unit. It's on the whole here. The best comparison I can give you is that like it's got the sound of the entire unit, the DAC, the headphone amp, and all that. I mean, it's got that really neutral, clean, clear, for lack of better term, chi-fi sound, right? It's like perceptively very neutral in its frequency response. There doesn't seem to be a frequency range that is, you know, noticeably elevated over anything like that. It's got decent resolution on it. Okay, it's got decently holographic spatial presentation and all of those kinds of things. But I mean, the headphone amplifier, like that's the nature of its sound that I talked about, but it doesn't have a ton of power or control, and it's just like, it is the relative weakness of the unit. It is not poor, it is sufficient for easy to drive loads, but that's about it, right? Like, I would put the headphone amplifier in here on the level of like most single-ended dedicated headphone amps that are, you know, kind of on the entry-level tier. So things that would be there would be like the Monolith Liquid Spark amplifier, the JDS Labs Atom, the Schiit Magni 3 series. Okay, let's see, the Gishelli Arkel 2.5 GMR, like those kind of that are now, those amps are generally kind of like in the $120 to $150 range price-wise. And to me, the headphone amp in this is kind of on that tier and gives you like that kind of level of performance. All right. The DAC section in here, I think, is better than the amp section. And in my experience, DACs are what SMSL does well, relatively speaking. Their amps have been okay. Their DACs have been usually pretty good to excellent. And I think the DAC in here is much stronger than the amp. So all those things that I talked about with the sonic character just a moment ago, just that really neutral, clean, clear, really quiet sonic background, okay? Decently detailed, decently holographic in its spatial presentation, a soundstage that stands out as neither being huge nor small, just kind of there what it needs to be. Okay, those kind of features in there apply to the DAC. So I mean, the DAC in here is very competent, but it has that not necessarily dry sound, but that kind of I don't want to call it sterile either, but it's just that kind of sound that is just there, does the job, and that's about it, right? There's not any kind of like added fun or flavoring or anything like that, which is I mean, this is a sound that some people swear by, and like that's what they want. So if that's you, here it is. There, you know, go for it. I did think the DAC in here had just a little bit of a digital glare to it, not bad. Okay, not distracting usually when I was just listening to music. Generally only heard it in direct comparisons with other DACs, but it was just a hint of it was there. So if that's the thing that bothers you, you should be aware of that is in this unit here too. Okay, so where does the DAC performance fall then? I will do I will bring in the comparisons that I did for other standalone DACs here to help answer that question. I compared the DAC in this to the very similarly named, and I did not come up with this naming convention, so don't complain to me about it, okay? But the SMSL DO300 DAC, so not the DO300EX, that's this, just the DO300. Okay, that's a DAC / preamp unit that I did a review for 2-3 months ago, something like that, which I will put a link to down in the description. Okay, that is about a $500 DAC only unit, and it did outperform this. I mean, again, this is a $470 all-in-one with a head amp in it, so I didn't expect it to perform as well as the normal DO300. It did not. Like the DO300 had more resolution, had a more holographic spatial presentation. It had more control and refinement overall in its sound. I did not detect that digital glare on it like I did on the EX unit and that kind of thing here. So the DAC in here, unsurprisingly, is not on the tier of like the $500 DAC only sibling from the same company, bearing roughly the same model number. Again, I don't know why. Okay, as this one. But not a surprising result there. We got what we expected. So on the other end of the price scale, I pulled out my original Schiit Modius, which when it was in its day, I think was either $200 and maybe up to a $230 balanced DAC. No preamp functionality on that one. It's just simply a DAC. Did some A/B with this set at its fixed output level. Found out that its fixed output level was a little bit louder than what the Modius was doing, so I had to go back to variable, back off the volume on this a little bit to get it to volume match the Modius. Okay, but got it there. And I thought that the Modius had a little bit warmer sound to it, so it's not like that kind of like true, you know, that I don't know what else to call it other than just like that hi-fi neutral sound. If you've heard SMSLs and all that before, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like it's got that sound to it. The Modius isn't like that. It's a little bit warmer, a little bit smoother. It's a little bit more relaxed in the top end, okay, than this is. So this one has a little bit more sparkly and a little bit brighter presentation in it then. And I think the Modius is a little bit warmer and a little bit punchier in its dynamics, but they are very, very close to each other in terms of actual resolution and holography of the soundstage and the spatial presentation and all of that. Again, very close. So that tells me that the DAC section in this unit is roughly on the tier of like those more, call them budget enthusiast, if you will, slash sort of entry-level balanced DACs that are out there. Okay, so call it roughly, you know, a $230, $250-ish DAC unit in there as far as the value of the DAC goes. All right, what does that mean then? So if we are generous with what I've talked about here in terms of the price performance ratio here, and actually we'll come back to that. I do want to make a comparison of this to an actual DAC amp, okay, that's out there. That would be the HiFiMan EF400, which I reviewed quite a while ago, and I'll put a link to that down in the description as well. That was initially a $600 unit, then it was a $500 unit, and I looked it up just before the filming of this video. It's now a $400 unit. And features-wise, the DO300EX is far more feature-packed than the EF400 is. Like, this one has up to 5 digital inputs if you include Bluetooth. The EF400 has a single USB input on it. That's all you get for inputs. This one has preamp functionality. The EF400 has line out from the DAC. That's it. This one has a remote control and Bluetooth connectivity and all of that. The EF400 it does not. Okay, the EF400 is a pretty stripped down feature set. This thing can decode DSD, MQA, really high bit rate PCM files if you want to. The EF400 tops out at 32-bit 192 kilohertz PCM files. So in terms of features, this unit definitely wins over the EF400. In terms of sound, it is exactly the opposite. To me, the EF400 has a much more engaging sound. It's got like a bigger soundstage. Again, soundstage size is not a measure of like technical ability and better worse. It's just a presentational and preference thing. But the holography within the soundstage, like how accurate is the imaging and the separation and all of that kind of stuff, is a measure of like better or worse and technical ability. And I think the EF400 has this beat in terms of spatial holography and spatial separation and those sorts of things. I preferred the EF400's more active and engaging presentation, and it's just smoother all around. Like that one didn't sound digital or glary to me, where this one can just a little bit at times. Okay, and then also the headphone amp in the EF400 is vastly superior to the headphone amp here in the DO300EX, because the headphone amp in the EF400 can somewhat competently drive hard loads like all the way up through like the HE6 series, and it has the power for the Susvara. It does not have the resolution to bring the most out of the Susvara, but the amp power is sufficient, okay, for it. Okay, and so forth. So, but there's that difference in features, right? So I think at $400 with the really stripped down feature set, the EF400 sounds much better as an all-around unit than this one. This one still sounds pretty good and quite competent, and it comes with a bunch of extra features for, you know, that $70 more, and a remote control. Okay, depending on your setup, that may or may not be important, but for $70 more than the EF400. So coming back, unpacking the DO300EX and answering the question like through my lens of how I'm looking at all-in-one units these days, like, can I assemble a fully separate stack that brings a level of sonic performance that is either equal to or above this, and convenience and all of that, you know, that still gives me roughly the same functionality and all of that? And it's really close. It's really close. To me, there's not a slam dunk answer to that question either way on this unit. Let me explain why. I think for pure sonics, you can put together an amp and a DAC stack for, you know, that $470-ish US dollars that's going to most likely sound better than this, but you probably will miss out on several features. Like, you could put together a Modius and Magnus stack, for example. Going to be pretty close, pretty comparable, I think, in overall performance there, because, again, I think the amp in here, you know, kind of roughly on that level. And the Magnus has a preamp output on it, okay, that is balanced. Okay, but you're not going to get a remote control. Okay, you're going to be limited in your decoding options with that stack and that sort of thing. So this does have a features advantage that may be appeal to some users, and that other might be a deal breaker for it. You could match the Modius to like or with the Schiit Asgard 3, which would be a much better headphone amplifier yet than the Modius. That's like $250 plus $230-ish. I think we're on the Modius E now. Okay, and you know, that's pretty much the same price, pretty close to the same price as what this one is, but that's going to be single-ended only, and you're also going to kneecap the performance of the Modius a little bit by using its single-ended outputs rather than its balanced outputs, okay? Because, yeah, at least from the line out here and the preamp out, it's the same thing. The XLR, the balanced output, sounds better than the single-ended, okay? Again, not because balanced is inherently better than single-ended. It's just that these units that are designed to be balanced at this price range generally sound better to be used by their design, by their balanced outputs than their single-ended, okay? And I think that might also be a little bit what holds the headphone amp back in here, is they're taking that balanced signal from the DAC, you know, down mixing it to single-ended. So I think that might hurt it a little bit. Okay, getting off track though. I think for pure sonics, again, there are some signal chains you can put together, and I've given two examples as a starting point that will sound just as good, if not better than this, but will leave functionality on the floor. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's not clear-cut for me here, because I can see the performance of this unit being good enough for some people that they're going to be okay with that, and that they need those extra functions. Like they're going to use Bluetooth a lot, or they need MQA decoding, or they have a fairly large DSD library, things of that nature. Or this is also going to be used as a DAC for a speaker amp, and the preamp outputs are going to be really helpful, whatever the case may be, okay? I can make a case for it there. I personally didn't love the sound of this unit. It's okay, it's competent, it does the job. I enjoyed it for background listening music. I didn't love it so much when I got into more critical listening and just wanted to get lost in the music, okay? It didn't do it for me there, all right? But it might for you. And it's got a good feature set on it, which will appeal to some. So what does that mean my recommendation is? I think if you really you know, it's got a good price and it's got a really good feature set and it's in a small package. And so it particularly for my international viewers, those who are not US based, where it's harder to get products from Schiit, Monoprice, JDS Labs, you know, just Shelly, like, you know, harder to get from those brands or more expensive because of extra shipping costs and all of that, then I think this could really be appealing, all that, because of its features, its decent sound, and its small footprint and all of that. So I think that's kind of going to be the target audience most of the time for this piece. All right, so I will leave it there. I'm Wave Theory. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like this video if you haven't yet. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out my PayPal and my Patreon. Use the affiliate links to help support the channel. You know, do all those things you do to support YouTube channels. So again, thanks for watching, and as always, enjoy the music.